So, all right, Roman. So, I kind of want to get your idea on how you conceptualize uh, an altcoin market. In the scenario that, say, hypothetically, Bitcoin does reclaim all time high, and what are you kind of thinking of alts doing in that scenario, and what are you kind of looking for?
So, classically speaking, when Bitcoin hits an all-time high, usually it leaves the alts in the dust more often than not. But as soon as Bitcoin has that pause, this is when you have the trickle-down effect to top 10 caps, top 20, top 50, and so forth and so forth. So that's what we have seen historically. This is what I kind of also expect in case we break that 60 something thousand barrier. Um, but from a maturity standpoint, there are some alts that you kind of have to take into the same consideration as mature, as important as Bitcoin. I mean, Ethereum didn't play that big of a role, let's put it that way, in the last breakthrough, but nonetheless did hit. I forgot what's the right number, 4,000 something. Uh, Actually, this is a very interesting question. This is reason being is the biggest difference that we have seen through this bull market. If you look at the previous bull market, 2016, 2017, most new money in 2016, 17 went and deposited into Bitcoin. This was where first money went in, and then through influence or through whatever marketing on the crypto verse, they invested into some alts. If you look at this market today, very little first time money went into Bitcoin. A lot of them went into doggy coins or into some other alts. So it'd be very interesting to see if it breaks through. If it when it breaks through up above 65K, how quickly it rises and where will the new influx of money go through? If we're talking about central banks bidding on Bitcoin, then it's going to blow everything out of its way for sure. But
Yeah,
if
no
it's
doubt.
generally speaking retail investors, quote unquote, then Bitcoin won't have as big of a percentage rise as alts.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe, especially over the long term, if you think about that as like, I think if you when you're saying that or you're conceptualizing that, you're thinking, if you just took from like today, whatever the price of, a certain altcoin is today, to the absolute peak of, a blow off top, right? But if you kind of move it away from that framework, right, then it's not, it's not as accurate, right? Or at least challenges that concept, right? And we all kind of think that we'll sell perfectly at the top, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's just not. It's one of those things where, like, a lot of times the people who do it are, do it on accident and for different reasons, right? Where
Absolutely.
like John Bogle sold like all his like he liquidated like a shitload of money in stocks right before the 2008 crash, and because he thought he was going to die. He had like a terminal
Oh,
diagnosis. So it wasn't like he had, perfectly predicted the top of the market. He just got lucky. And a lot of times, so anyway,
life.
it's a long way of saying like, we think we can do that, but it's not really that realistic, you know?
Okay, but then when we're having this topic, is we're talking more from an investment standpoint versus a trader standpoint.
Well, if you're
You know what I
talking
mean?
like the percentage, if you're just measuring the percentage gains from like the from where price is currently to, a parabolic blow off peak, then yeah, that, I mean, we if we're investors though, then, we hold our altcoins until they end up losing out to Bitcoin, right? I mean,
I feel like a lot of traders get greedy. Like if Bitcoin gets up there and then pauses, they're like, I need more gains. So they'll look at some of the top 10, top 20 and kind of move into the ones that haven't moved yet. I mean,
Yes.
that's how I kind of understand it. That too, and then you get new people coming in who are looking for the next Bitcoin, and then it kind of sets off this chain reaction, and then it's all hype city for 2 weeks, and then everybody thinks it's going to keep happening, and then it rotates back into Bitcoin, and they move it back, and shit crashes, and then the people that lose out big pull out, and there's this big fear thing. It's just this crazy cycle.
Yeah.
Definitely. But from another angle, we are seeing to a certain extent certain projects providing new frontiers of what this technology can do. I
Yes.
think DeFi is very interesting. I mean, the fact that you can lend, borrow without a centralized entity, and basically you have a protocol that manages that in a very fair way. And I think this is something not to this is something that needs to be explored. I mean, if we are in this game from a perspective that we want to have more ownership of what we have, and we want to bypass central banking organisms. I mean, we are seeing some new and innovative things, and we kind of have to respect that new technology.
Yeah,
And
you've heard the comparison to like the .com bubble, right? All these websites, like it was new. Like for example, Pets.com was bought for like $1 billion by AOL, and then it ended up not being anything. And then the ones that actually did things are the ones that are still around, like like websites, like your Googles and PayPal's and stuff like that.
no, I hear you, but I don't think we even need to go to .com because if you look at let's say we take America and Canada as an example. I mean, what is the success rate of a new open business? I mean, it's
Low.
very, very low. So why wouldn't this type of percentage apply to a crypto project or like as a traditional startup?
I think it
You know,
will, especially when like SEC laws and stuff come into be a factor, and just is it security, is it not, or stuff like that, and different regulations, and just when the Wild West has been put to bed or put to sleep or advance a little bit, or at least to when investors get smarter about what they're doing, and it's not just they realize it's just gambling. A lot of times.
So what do you guys think about this the Bitcoin dominance chart that I'm looking at? Do you have any opinions around that, or you know?
I think it loses value because you have so many more you have just many more alts that come into the market, and like price could just freeze. You know what I mean? And just because there's more and more alts coming into the market, the dominance will slowly but surely fall off. Um, to be quite honest with you, I prefer substantially more the ETH BTC pairing. Like that's what I kind of gauge myself at of Bitcoin versus the crypto or versus the altcoin market.
Yeah, we'll take a
Um,
switch over to that.
Yeah, I watch Total Two and Total Three a lot. Just to
So
kind of get different perspective.
so here we're kind of looking at the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, and yeah, you can see this is gives you a little bit more actionable levels. Like whereas the BTC dominance, I kind of agree with you. I don't think it really has any value as far as TA goes. I wouldn't use TA on that chart, but I would use TA on this chart. And
exactly, and also just to finish up on a point on Bitcoin dominance, well, not historically speaking, the past couple of years, it only gains value, substantial value, in a crash. Because when Bitcoin loses 20%, everything else loses 40, 50, 60% and above.
Yeah.
So that's where usually Bitcoin gains most of its values in the past couple of years. Versus this, I mean, you can actually apply TNA, and I know a couple of very successful traders that only trade altcoins versus Bitcoin pairing, and they do pretty damn well.
yeah, I would say
Yeah, I'm
that
with
that's
Edge in
the,
that.
if you're trading altcoins, that's you want to be looking at the Bitcoin pairings because you can people get into the situation where they end up in the situation where they're holding altcoins that are underperforming Bitcoin, right? But they're outperforming USD. So if you're deciding to hold something other than Bitcoin, you want to know what it's doing against Bitcoin, right? And so yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, and I think Bitcoin is a good chart to map out the the altcoin world, so to speak, or give you like an altcoin index. Because I mean, just from a surface level, I think a lot of those altcoins are based on the Ethereum protocol.
Yeah, ERC20
In
tokens.
one
Yes.
way or another, right? So and so you can think of Ethereum as the infrastructure that all these altcoins are being built on.
Most
And
definitely, a big chunk of it, and but also it gives you a decent pulse on the market from a perspective of altcoins versus Bitcoin itself. Uh, and this is why I started to be a little bit more bullish on the altcoins because obviously on the weekly you don't see it as much, but I felt like on the daily up we started to have a bit of a momentum starting from Ethereum, BTC, and it did reflect on a lot of the alts versus Bitcoin is still, how could I say this? It's still marinating. It's not ready to pop out. uh, but again, when Bitcoin will be done marinating, for sure, it will eclipse for its duration other alts. But this is why, like me personally, I never trade Bitcoin. I don't even look to trade Bitcoin. I just buy Bitcoin and I just hold it. You know what I mean? Because for me, if there's one project I would hold for 100 years, if I live that long, is obviously Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But I find altcoins much more advantageous to trade because for me, I need that price expansion, upside or downside, either or. But I need that price expansion versus Bitcoin tends to have more pauses from a price actions perspective. If that makes any sense.
yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I
Yeah, I
would,
get what you're
if I
saying.
were looking at this chart, I would trade, just like I would trade any other price action chart. I would kind of, if you've got this kind of,
Skinny leg.
skinny leg coming up, and you get this like price gap right here, and then you have your this high right here. I'd be looking at. So you have this consolidation. It's kind of like it kind of has the appearance of could be a potential. Swing failure pattern above here, right? Just you get your close above here, and then then it sells off right away, and
Sure.
and invalidates that. But you don't really have a confirmation. I mean, I'm talking about something that right now just doesn't exist in the market. Until you start taking out the lows here and then reaching down. But we were kind of talking earlier about when do you know that the altcoin market is going to to boom or whatever. And I think just from my point of view, and maybe it's an uninformed point of view, but I would kind of have a little bit of an expectation that Bitcoin would move first and take the lead. And if that happened, then you probably would see the Ethereum Bitcoin chart on the weekly chart uh, come down and fill that liquidity below, and start to really confirm that swing failure pattern, and start invalidating lows and then reaching down here. You could draw a fib retracement. The fib retracements generally come in around the clean break. Your golden pockets right around that high. But the idea is that if price came down and if the Ethereum BTC chart hit this level, that would be the level I'd be interested in, just from a technical analysis perspective. And it kind of lines up with what's happening on the macro, or what would potentially happen, right? If Bitcoin takes the reins and leads the charge, and Ethereum doesn't necessarily decline, but it just declines relatively to the BTC pairings, comes down, hits this level, and that might be a situation. How many? We're on a weekly chart. How long would that take, right? I mean, this wouldn't happen instantly. It's not like it's just gonna nuke through. And I mean, this is a weekly chart. This could take months or even half a year to play out. But so maybe we're in a scenario where that happens, and then Bitcoin kind of cools off, and Ethereum's at this level. Um, yeah, that's a situation where if that hypothetically, if that happened, I'm not demanding that this scenario plays out, but I'm just trying to illustrate the type of scenario that would get me interested in like buying altcoins and kind of getting long on that space. So if that did
Yeah, I
happen,
think historically on a retrace, like Bitcoin retrace is usually when alts kind of fly, which could be, I think, I forget who was talking about it earlier today. That I agreed with around 56 or something like that. It's just a potential area where we could see it happen.
which area was that?
I think it's right around 56,000. It's probably the 702.
Yeah, so let's go back to the Bitcoin chart. So essentially, go back to the Bitcoin chart here.
Yeah, the 702 is at 58.3 roughly.
Yeah, let me just put the cap in this video real quick.